as a non-basketball fan, I gotta say, this Netflix documentary series, The Last Dance, was riveting. I loved it. I couldn't stop watching it, episode after episode, and it's only 10 episodes, but man, it just leaves you on the edge of your seat at the end of each one. And it's just about the life and times of Michael Jordan, his rise to fame, his time at the Chicago Bulls, and it was so damn entertaining. I was so engrossed in it. And I haven't been a sports fan for years. Pretty much since I had children. I just lost all interest in watching and following sport. But this show was just so damn watchable. Alright, and there were so many things I had no idea about. And I grew up during the era of Michael Jordan. And he was famous, even down here in Australia. Right? In the 90s, he was a phenomenon. He was on the lips of everyone's mouth. And he was just all over TV, in movies when Space Jam came out. But I never really had any interest in basketball, and as a result I had no knowledge or interest in what happened in his career. I had no idea that the guy won 3 in a row from 91 to 93, and then I knew he left to play baseball, but I didn't know that he came back, lost 1 year, and then won another 3 in a row from 96, 97 and 98. 2 3-peats within 8 years. Incredible record. And I never really watched highlights of the man playing. But he was a masterful. He was a maestro. And I knew that the playoffs in basketball was a 7-game series. But I never sat down and appreciated how bloody epic and nail-biting that can be. And it was amazing how this show would jump chronologically between his early career and then 1998, which was the last dance of the Chicago Bulls, because then the management wanted to break up the team, which is a ludicrous thing. Like, why would you break up the most successful basketball team of all time? Why would you break up the team and the coach that literally made basketball so damn famous worldwide? It like doubled the amount or tripled the amount of countries it was played in. And it put the sport on the map and made the world pay attention to someone like Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls. Why would you break up that team? But the management had their reasons. I guess they thought it was getting too expensive to keep them on. But they would have been generating so much bloody money. Just the fact that they had those larger than life personalities of Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman on the team. And anyway, I don't understand why they broke up that team. It's something that boggles the mind. But the show just masterfully builds you up to that moment. And you get to see the inner workings, the machinations of the league and of the franchise. The politics, the backroom deals, the betrayals, the structure and the interplay of all the personal relationships and the business relationships and how it all went down. And it was so damn fascinating and interesting to watch. It was like Game of Thrones of the sports world, I'm telling you. And like I said, the larger than life personalities of Michael Jordan and especially someone like Dennis bloody Rodman. Now that guy is a character, and I never knew much about him apart from his sort of crazy persona. I didn't know how great a basketball player this guy was and how highly regarded he is in the annals of basketball history as a defensive player. He was outstanding. I mean, you see the highlights of this guy in the show and it was amazing. And Scottie Pippen, I knew the name because the kids who were always really into basketball when I was back in primary school, they were always talking about Jordan and Pippen, and I never knew nothing about Scottie Pippen. But watching him in this show, another fascinating person to watch their life story and their career unfold. He was a brilliant player too. And it was great to see how Michael Jordan interacted with his team and how a lot of players thought the guy was a tyrant, but then a lot of them admitted that after all was said and done and they got 6 bloody titles playing with the guy, that they understood what he was doing. He was motivating them with a bit of tough love. It was amazing also to see how the coach, Phil Jackson, came in and took over from that other guy. I think his name was Doug Collins, the other coach, who His strategy was all about getting the team to give the ball to Michael Jordan. The whole strategy was get the ball and give it to Michael, and Michael will make something happen. He'll create a play, and he'll score most of the points, and he'll orchestrate the entire game. And Phil Jackson came in and said, let's change the focus of the team from being completely Michael Jordan oriented to being more about the team and working together for everyone to score points. And I sort of understand that. I mean, look, when you've got a player as great as Michael Jordan, it makes sense to always try to get the ball to him. But at the same time, when you have such talented players around you as well, it's good to have contingency plans and to have the rest of the team be at as high a level as possible, so that if something like an injury happens, or if something like your star player decides to change sports, all right, you have a contingency plan and you can rely on the rest of the team to play well. All right, so Phil Jackson was a great coach, and it was great to see the competing strategies and how Michael Jordan had to adapt to them, because he was a big, larger-than-life personality himself, and he was used to having all the adoration, all the focus on him, and it was interesting to watch him, especially now, later in life in his 50s, to reflect back on how that transition, how it was hard for him at first, but he came to accept it and to realize that it was the better way of being a member of the team. But it was great to see him. It's also, I got a lot of respect for Michael Jordan in this show, because a lot of people say, yes, he was tyrannical and mean and all that, but I appreciate sometimes some tough love. It's what a lot of people need, someone to light a fire under their ass to motivate them, and he did that for his team. And he seemed to be a pretty loyal and honourable guy. Yeah, he would, have a few laughs here and there. Who doesn't? You don't want someone who's completely serious, and he would take the piss out of his teammates, but that's what good friends do anyway. It's called banter. It's normal. And it was amazing to see the insights of, in the locker rooms and seeing how they interact and all that. And, a lot of people had this image of Michael Jordan as just a super nice guy all the time. And I still think he was. He genuinely seemed like a nice guy, a pretty clean guy. They tried to insinuate throughout his career that he was a gambling addict. But I don't think so. The guy was worth, tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't know what his net worth was in the 90s. But when he's, gambling $10,000 here, $50,000, that's shit all. That's nothing for someone who's a multi-millionaire like that. So the guy was not a gambling addict. If he was, like he said in his own words, he'd have no house, he'd have no family, he'd have nothing. That's what happens to gambling addicts. All right, he just was a recreational gambler. And that's the least of the vices you can imagine when you're living a lifestyle like that. He wasn't a womanizer that we know of. The show didn't seem to depict that. And, he wasn't he wasn't into drugs or anything like that. So he was a clean-cut guy and a nice guy who was very motivated and very focused. And I appreciate the fact that the guy was never really political. It was amazing watching how back in, I think it was in 92, there was all this pressure from the black community to force him to endorse a Democrat candidate for Senate. And instead of jumping on the bandwagon, his answer was, he said later on that it was like an offhand remark he made in jest, behind closed doors, but he said, well, Republicans buy sneakers too. And I just thought, whether it was in jest or not, that's a great sort of attitude to have when you're a public figure or a sportsman like that. And when you're representing a franchise, you don't want to alienate half your fan base. And he was a smart businessman. He made so much more money by staying apolitical in public. He probably had his own personal leanings behind closed doors. He probably did support that Democrat guy. But he kept it to himself. And he wasn't an activist. And he even said that in his own words. I never saw myself as an activist. I saw myself as a highly motivated athlete. And he said that people said that was selfish of him. How is that selfish? It's selfish of you to expect him to align politically with your own personal views just because his skin color is a certain way. He's allowed to be a free, independent thinker. And the fact that he wanted to stay apolitical was a brilliant move. Because look how it worked for his career. Everyone loved him. Isn't that what you want? The widest appeal as possible when you're, a public figure and a business person and an athlete. So I gained a lot of respect for Michael watching this show. And also it was very heartfelt watching his family life. I had no idea about how he lost his father. Very tragically, his father was murdered by scumbag thieves. while the poor guy was sleeping in his car, and how that affected Michael and made him want to try baseball because that was a sport that his father had started him on as a young boy, and he wanted to honor his father by playing baseball. That was very touching. And when you see the man break down, I think it was in 1996 to the 97 season, when they had the best ever at the time, I don't know if that's been beaten yet, win-to-loss record of 72 wins and 10 losses only. That was the best seasonal record at the time ever. And all they needed to do was win that final series in 97, win that championship, and they'd be considered the greatest team of all time, statistically. Like, it was, it wasn't a negotiable fact. It was, objectively, they would have been the greatest team of all time. And the fact that once he won, he went in the locker room and he was holding the trophy and he just collapsed and was crying. And it felt like he was crying for his, such emotionally because his father wasn't there to share it with him. But maybe he really was feeling his father's presence in that moment. I don't know. But in that moment, it was very, I even got a bit emotional watching him break down in that moment when he won that championship. Just the release of it all, the emotional release. Because he usually was a pretty stoic guy. And I respect his stoicism as well. And it was just a great, riveting show. And I got Kevin Hart to thank for watching it. I had no interest in watching this show whatsoever. I kept scrolling past it on Netflix. As I said, not a basketball fan and not really a massive sports fan anymore. So I had no interest at all. And I'm watching the Joe Rogan podcast episode with Kevin Hart. And I tell you what, just watching him with so much enthusiasm talking about the show while he was going on this massive rant about being motivated in life and stuff like that. It's a great episode of Joe Rogan's podcast, one of the best. Kevin Hart for 2 hours straight. Some of the most motivational shit you'll ever hear. He's a great guy. And he motivated me to watch this documentary. So thank you, Kevin Hart. Great recommendation. And I've got to recommend it too. For sports fans and non-sports fans, watch this documentary series. It's great. It's riveting. Just like I said, watching the interplay of the sport, how it works, the machinations, really coming to appreciate the mastery and the finesse and beauty of the game of basketball, which I was never good at, so I never had an appreciation for it. And seeing what Michael Jordan's life was really like from beginning to now, his retirement pretty much. And it was great to watch. And you see multiple perspectives in it, from famous people to other basketball players to whatever, and they give their insights into it all, and it's just great to see. It's lighthearted, but at the same time, it's got some deeply, sort of inspirational and emotional moments, but for the most part, it's a lighthearted show. It's very highly entertaining, whether you like sport or not, and it's a strong recommend. I don't know what else I can say about it, apart from the fact that I admire the hell out of Michael Jordan. I guess he's the real MJ, is he? I don't know. Tell me in the comments, is Michael Jordan or Michael Jackson the real MJ? But Michael Jordan, I admire his work ethic. Unbelievable. Was not a lazy man at all. He was motivated to be the best in the world, and through hard work and determination, he made it happen. And you got to admire that. And it was great. He's a very motivating sort of person. And watching this show, it's just a damn good watch. Huh. Anyway, I won't rant on much longer about it. Check out the show if you haven't seen it. It's well worth the watch. Also, check out that Kevin Hart podcast on the Joe Rogan show. Great episode. And yeah, one of the best things on Netflix I've seen. All right, folks, I'll leave it there. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Take care, be good, and I'll see you later.